So my name is David Dickinson. I'm a professor of economics here at Appalachian State University. I specialize in experimental and behavioral economics, and I've had the chance to do some pretty interesting collaborative work with psychologists and sleep scientists. And that's why I'm here. Well, so as far as why this research on sleep and decision making is important, at least as I see it, I think first of all, it's an interesting interdisciplinary merging of a couple of fields. The sleep scientists have had a pretty long-standing interest in how sleep impacts cognitive functioning in different ways. And so decision making is one of these higher level cognitive functions. That's been a bit of more recent interest. By recent, I mean, the last few decades. But understanding how sleep affects decision making is important in my view, because there's so many people in modern society, lots of countries. The data indicate that so many people are suffering from insufficient sleep, possibly due to their own choosing, possibly not, but it's something that has caused public health experts to deem it a public health concern, if not crisis. What we've tried to do is develop a protocol where we put individuals through a full week of that sleep level. In some instances, the same individual would do a full week of being well rested, a full week of being sleep restricted, so we can compare that person to his or her own baseline behavior. But essentially, we have a way of objectively monitoring the participants. They use a sleep tracking device, this guy right here. So sort of like a Fitbit on steroids or something like that. But that'd be sort of the, research grade sleep tracker. And so the scientific community believes in the data that come from those. But you can imagine then at the end of this protocol, which I should also say allows participants to undergo this sleep manipulation in their own home environment. So that they're not living in a lab or anything like that. They go away, we sort of monitor and can download their sleep data to verify compliance afterwards. But they, otherwise, are in their normal environment, normal work, school, all those activities. We just track their sleep and put them to that manipulation. At the end of that, they come into the lab and do some decisions for us. And so we've looked at decision making from risky choice domain to the area of updating your beliefs when new information comes in. We've looked at simple social interactive decision making, like how individuals might decide to split a pie or trust one another. And so what we do is all incentivized experiments, so there's real money on the line. So that's a hallmark of the experimental economics methodology. And this way people are really put in a consequential environment where their decisions matter. The payoff they walk away with depends on what they actually decided. And simply put, we compare whether those decisions differ when they're sleep restricted versus well rested. With respect to the belief updating, you can imagine a simple environment where you have a certain sense of how likely a certain event is to happen, but then there's some new information that allows you to update your beliefs. And so what we found there is that the sleep restricted individuals tend to place a little bit less decision weight on that new information coming in. And so now that doesn't necessarily mean it's always bad. The baseline participant might not put sort of an equal weighting on both sources of information. If you were going to get really sort of nerdy on the topic, there's this statistical Bayes rule that you've maybe heard of that provides a very explicit way of combining existing and new information together to form a new belief. And so individuals are not necessarily perfect Bayesian updaters, even in their well-rested state. But it does seem like they tend to move towards a simpler way of approaching their belief formation, focusing more on one source of information as opposed to what sometimes might be most accurate if you combined multiple sources of information. With respect to the social decision making, some of the early experiments we did looked at simple two-person pie splitting exercises where maybe you and I are bargaining over a $10 sum of money. Maybe I get to decide how that's divided and that's the end of it. Or maybe in another environment, I get to decide, but you can accept or reject what I've proposed. If you reject it, we both get nothing. That's another way that this plays out, or I guess a slightly different environment. A third might be I decide how much of that $10 to pass along to you. Whatever I pass to you gets multiplied, and so it kind of grows, and then you can choose to pass some or none or all of that multiplied amount back to me. So that's sort of the trust version of that game. All of what we found in looking at that points towards people becoming more selfish when they're sleep restricted. So I was able to work with a couple of really sharp young political scientists recently where their focus was on how sleep infected would affect likelihood of voting or civic engagement and behaviors. We found across a few different methodologies the same basic storyline. People tend to be less engaged in things that matter and things that probably have spillover effects in society if you become less trusting and less pro-social. So from here, going out 10 years, I guess I would like to see a better appreciation. I mean, it's a growing appreciation, but a better appreciation for these sort of hidden impacts of insufficient sleep. Because like I said, it's pretty easy to see if someone's, having trouble staying awake at work and so they're not productive. I mean, that's sort of the obvious stuff that gets picked up pretty easily. But it's a little bit more subtle to understand if you're just a bit less likely to trust even a coworker on a joint project or something like that. It's harder to understand the magnitude of what that's costing society or a business. And it's hard to understand, if you can't, update information and beliefs, what exactly does that translate into? So there are hidden costs that maybe haven't been picked up. Probably the key takeaway is something that I don't think is going to be new news to a lot of people. My guess is that we've all heard this before, the importance of, diet, exercise, sleep. I mean, that sort of trifecta of good habits seems to come up and has come up. It's not new to me, but I guess, drawing attention back to the importance of sleep. Sometimes we all need to go back to the basics, and that would be one of the basics. And so, if we consider it part of the building block foundation of a healthy lifestyle, then I think we all understand if we've got a faulty foundation, then the house can come down at some point. And so it's maybe hopeful that people treat that as importantly as it probably is. It's difficult when we all know that there are real trade-offs and we think we can kind of steal away a little in terms of extra time and not give up much in the trade-off. So calculating exactly what we are giving up, maybe that's part of the goal of this research, is to highlight that, hey, you might be giving up or trading away a little bit more than you thought in terms of your decision-making quality or accuracy. Simple decision-making processes are sometimes quite good, but many times we do want to be able to put our full cognitive resources to the task if need be, and so there could be an important trade-off to consider.